Note the disclaimer.
"50 seconds of logos, including this boy landing on the moon, and then that moon apparating to a different point in the sky."
Tradition for tradition's sake. Also, don't you get tired of counting the seconds of logos instead of just watching the movie?
Also Comcast.
I guess the sin here is that he's mad about Universal acquiring DreamWorks, but what else could they do? They were already in financial dire straits.
Just a small point, but since Great Britain doesn't have a football team outside of the Olympics, this should really be the English national flag, and everyone knows that's a well-buttered crumpet flanked by 2 cups of tea and not this nonsense.
The only thing that's nonsense here is that explanation. First off, the England national flag is the St. George's Cross, which is a red cross on a white background. Secondly, this is talking about FIFA, or at least a FIFA offshoot, and England does have a national team for it.
Traveller's checks, passport.
Do you have the tickets, darling?
Mid-aughts computer-generated animated film, avoid showing human faces because faces are hard, okay? Cliché.
Or it's possible that this family wasn't the focus of the movie, so they didn't want to bother creating a bunch of faces for unimportant characters. Plus, they did make faces for Roddy, Rita, the Toad, LeFrog, Spike, Whitey, and every other rat character in this movie, and a lot of them would have needed more detail than a human face, despite making it all look like their tried and true plasticine style.
Also, and I cannot say this firmly enough, the fact that Aardman decided to go CG instead of stop motion for this movie is unforgivable. You were the chosen one, Aardman!
Funny joke at the end there, but the reason Aardman went CG here was mostly for 2 reasons, which I'm paraphrasing from a YouTuber called Edache. One, the water scenes would have been hard to superimpose onto the plasticine shots back in 2006, so they had no other choice. The second was that Jeffrey Katzenberg was a notorious micromanager at DreamWorks and wanted his films out faster to outdo Disney. Heck, the movie that came before it, Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, took 5 years to make, and Jeffrey, I would imagine, was getting impatient. Also, 10 sins for that? Slightly understandable, but I feel like you're padding the sin count here.
Between the fancy bed, the violin, and the rat cage that's fancier than 95% of the places I've ever lived, this is an absolute orgy of evidence that we're currently in a rich kid's bedroom.
Jeremy points things out on the screen, cliché.
We'll be back in a few days, so here's enough food for you.
Were the 2 full canisters of, I'm going to say, Necco wafers and brown Necco wafers not enough?
Okay, I actually had to look this up because I had no idea what Necco wafers are, and it turns out they're little pressed sugar confections that came from Boston, Massachusetts in 1847. A few problems here. One, the company went out of business, and the sweets were discontinued by the time you made this video. Second, those lollies in the containers do not look like that. At best, probably chocolate buttons, or Smarties for Australian, British and Canadian audiences. Thirdly, rats can't have sugar or chocolate, similar to many animals. So Tabitha most likely added those in for herself to have while Roddy's eating his food.
Wallace-less grommets.
Jeremy points things out on the screen, cliché.
Also, I know you can be rich enough to own 2 of everything, but I don't think that's why I'm seeing 2 of this monkey, this cat, this rabbit, and 2 f***ing Ben Stillers over here.
Admits you can be rich enough to own 2 of everything, then comes up with an asinine reason to sin it. Solid plan, Jer.
Choosing Elvis over Wolverine.
I guess Hugh Jackman just wanted a break from the X-Men for a while. Hell, you try playing the same exact role for 20 years. Oh, you probably already have done, haven't you, Jeremy?
This DVD collection goes from actual DreamWorks self-fellatio to parody titles, instead of staying consistent and taking some time to think up parody titles for the DreamWorks flicks as well. How hard is it to come up with Drek instead of Shrek?
And what would be the point of that? Aardman made a 5-movie deal with DreamWorks at that point, so it makes sense that they would put DreamWorks movies there. They did the alternative titles mostly because they couldn't get the licensing agreements worked out. Jeremy also takes the time to show off the order of the collection, point out Chris's involvement in a film mentioned by Flushed Away, and talks about Wendelin from A Close Shave, but I won't bore you with all that.
This home entertainment setup from 2006 is A, entirely wireless, B, built with all the cables in the wall in such a way that you can't see or access them, C, using some form of cloaking technology from Star Trek, or D, animated by people who somehow didn't anticipate this level of nitpicking by a YouTube channel 17 years later. I bet it's C.
Sick burn on yourself, but I'm gonna go with D. though it could be B. They just have to have a port so that they can access the cables.
Sleeping in a tuxedo like some sort of psychopath.
Jeremy sends tuxedo cats.
Does he actually think they're alive? I figured he was just goofing around out of boredom, but why would he play around like this if he thinks there's a chance the house is being broken into?
Roddy, at the start of the movie, is characterized as a lonely rat. There's no one else in the house that he can have conversations with aside from the dolls. That is, at least until Sid shows up. So, of course, his only other option when Tabitha is around is to play pretend.
Why would a family that's going on holiday leave an entire jam roly-poly on the counter? It just doesn't. There's an entire goddamn cake, too? This is not the kitchen of a family that's flying away on vacation for any amount. Is that a plate full of sausages? Who leaves cooked meat on the counter overnight, even if you... Is that an open carton of milk?
Jeremy points food out on the screen, cliché.
Well, at least there's no doubt we're in a DreamWorks movie.
Better than being in Despicable Me.
They do not, repeat not, have food like this in a sewer.
My God, it looks like someone took the "you sound like you're from London" line and made it into a just barely feature-length movie.
Apparently in CinemaSins land, dialects don't exist.
It's the match of the century.
Which, considering this is only 2006, isn't as impressive a claim as it sounds.
The point of this line is it's a history-making soccer football match because England hasn't been in a FIFA World Cup final since 1966, as you so mentioned earlier.
Also, fortunately, for expositional purposes, Sid turns on the TV right at the start of this announcement, and not in the middle of a show about the Queen or a commercial for tea.
Wow, talk about dated. You made this video in 2023, 5 months after the news broke about Queen Elizabeth's passing. And even if you're suggesting a show about the Queen being on in 2006, the only references would have been various other TV shows, including Doctor Who, while Downton Abbey and The Crown hadn't even aired by that point yet. Unless you count a miniseries called The Virgin Queen, but I don't think that's what Jeremy meant. Not to mention the fact that the Brits have more going for them besides tea, stuffy suits, a devotion to the royal family, or polite manners, you ignorant American.
I'm not one for throwing sausages at televisions, but I feel like these have either been marinated in superglue or the laws of physics are not being respected here.
Have you ever had a sausage before, Jeremy? No matter how you cook them, they're always going to be at least somewhat greasy. Hence why it was sliding down the screen like that.
No, not the lever. Have mercy. No, I can't swim.
But you are currently swimming.
Technically true, but there's a great big difference between treading water and doing backstroke. Just because he knows his basic survival mechanism doesn't necessarily mean he can swim to safety.
Have you seen my dad?
Okay, that egg wasn't even yours to Easter.
Except that wasn't an Easter egg, it was a pop culture reference. You know, the thing you constantly do in videos and then send movies over.
The screaming slug is hilarious, but why is it running toward the thing that's making it scream?
Lies! It's running away from Roddy because it passes behind him right after. And if you paid close enough attention, you'd notice that Roddy first met that slug before he got out of the sewer water, and it started running away. Slugs are typically slow, so it took about 1.5 minutes to run to this location that you've come to.
Fine, I'll suspend my disbelief about the sewer world's fully functioning societal construct and unending ability to find raw materials, but I am drawing the line at curved, electrically powered screens. A man must have principles.
So you aren't going to suspend your disbelief. It's an animated movie, just go with it.
Is that guy wearing my underpants?
It appears he is, but the more important question is how did he manage to fly into them so perfectly?
Is that really the most important question?
Go ahead and make fun of Americans, we totally deserve it, but are we suggesting that these two have traveled from the American sewers to the English sewers for vacation? How? And why?
The answer is yes, they did. And if you saw the waterways, you'd see various seafaring vehicles, which means they could have sailed there themselves or caught different connections. They just don't bring it up in the film because it isn't important, and even if they did, the movie would take too long and you'd send it for exposition.
There's one person round here might be able to help you. The captain of the Jammy Dodger.
Fortunately for this movie's 76-minute runtime, this random food vendor knows exactly the person Roddy needs to find to get out of there.
Yes, because as he mentions in the dialogue that you cut out, she's a regular at this particular stall.
Shady customer. The captain of the Jammy Dodger.
I know where it is.
Ha ha! The dead fish isn't actually dead, but why? How is it not burning alive? How have they managed to isolate that part of the iron? And why? And how? But also, and why?
This wise on for how much time?
taking a sin off with a running gag with the slugs, and you can't stop me. I mean, I can't stop. I mean, you can't stop me not stopping me. I mean, it. I shall not be stopped!
I appreciate the sin removal, but the explanation for why goes on too long, especially when you just add one back soon after. Also, the laugh.
But also, why aren't they afraid of Roddy anymore? They were screaming at him a few minutes ago, and nothing's really changed except them wanting to be a part of the story now.
That's because it was a different group of slugs, supposedly picking up on Roddy's fear, while these ones are slightly more at ease.
All I really want to know is where Rita found Luke Skywalker's hand and how she's pulling off these highly dexterous shenanigans with what looks like just a pencil for a joystick.
Jeremy makes a pop culture reference that isn't a sin of the movie cliche.
Oh, sorry. Ah! Sorry. This movie has 100 jokes in it. 95 of them are animated critters being caused physical pain.
Jeremy has seemingly never heard of slapstick.
Let me go, you pink-eyed freak!
That's conjunctivitis.
Wrong. He's an albino rat, specifically from a laboratory.
Hey! You get your filthy paws off my stuff!
Female character has an embarrassing diary cliche. You tell me with confidence that the movie would have pulled this gag with a male captain, and I will call you a liar.
You must be the only bloke I know that has never kept a diary before. Also, Jeremy doesn't seem to know what a captain's log is.
Oh! I know where it is! Making assumptions.
He was correct, though.
But also, our pocket's not at the very top of the check for Ruby list.
Henchmen never usually think an important item is on someone's person unless it is highly visible.
I just want to get home to Kensington.
And I'm telling you the exact location of where I'm going so that your familiarity with it can progress the plot.
Pointing things out on the screen again, are we?
He's a madman! Run away! Run!
I'm sorry, I have so many questions about this. He snagged that fly over 2 full minutes ago. How is it still alive and in his mouth? How has his speech not been affected by a live fly just hanging out on his tongue? How did the fly generate enough power to drag the tongue out like this? Why didn't he try and escape sooner? Why is he more concerned with Roddy's well-being than his own? I swear if this is all just a setup for another clunky pun, I will...
Pardon me. My fly's undone.
Oh, for f***'s sake!
Jeremy hates fun.
This segment where this bobblehead of the then Prince Charles sets off a domino effect that destroys the monarchy collection, eventually ending in the destruction of a queen, is a brilliant social commentary on the fragility and ridiculousness of modern royalty. And if I thought for 1 second that this movie intended any of that, I'd remove a sin instead of adding these 5.
Padding the string count as usual, I see.
Keeping a collection and display of all your murders.
I think you mean imprisonments, my guy. They don't look dead to me. And a scene later shows Whitey and Spike clearly being able to move after being broken out of the ice and thawing a little. Heck, there's even a pop culture reference in that same fridge of a rat doing the Han Solo pose from when he gets frozen in carbonite.
Put your hands together.
Wanting someone to give you a boost and choosing to say, put your hands together, instead of, please give me a boost.
What CinemaSins fails to realise is that Roddy is likely not familiar with that term, being a lonesome aristocrat. So, put your hands together would have probably worked a little bit better than give me a boost.
Can we talk about the engineering design of this master cable? So it controls all of the electricity for this complex, and it's somehow designed to be easily removed while connecting ports a mere 2 inches from each other? How is this not an internal connection? Or at least have a cover?
Maybe because the Toad didn't suspect someone could come along and steal it? Since he doesn't get many visitors aside from Rita, and the only time she does come around is to take back the ruby.
Quite high, rather high, so very, very high.
My response when someone asks me how high I have to be to get through sinning the fast movies somehow makes it into this script.
Kinda makes me wonder how many others of these you've done while high.
Yeah, cool.
This fits.
Well, yes, considering the connecting ports have a male and female end, it'd be like putting 2 ends of an extension lead together. And it has the same length as her old belt. Either Jeremy is once again misunderstanding slapstick, or he's still sore from any ball kickings he would have gotten in grade school.
Please be careful. That ruby means a lot to me.
Well, then why did you f***ing charge at him the second you saw it fall into his shirt? Okay, she probably wasn't expecting it to launch itself 30 feet in the air, but you'd think she'd want to avoid doing something that has a risk of pushing him and it overboard.
You just answered yourself, Jeremy. She didn't expect that, nor did she think about it being caught in Roddy's shirt. She just assumed he had it until it landed in his hand, right before he examines it as a fake.
Roddy and James saves the day.
Teaching kids that the correct response to someone pissing you off is punching them down a ladder.
Not only is that not correct, but that was also oddly specific. What did you do, Jeremy? I'm not even going to show this sin in its entirety here because Jeremy is once again questioning cartoon logic.
How do I know this ain't just a load of old rubbish.
Well, I suppose you'll just have to trust me.
And she does! He promises her a ton of jewels if she helps him get home, and she believes him! Okay, she has limited options, but this is a big risk with no guarantee of a payoff coming from a scruffy guy she's known for a few hours that caused her nothing but calamity. We're nearing almost Martha levels of unearned truces here.
He's offering to pay her back for all the trouble he's caused her with the toad, the ruby, and everything in exchange for a lift home. What's so hard to understand here? And in what way is this unearned?
All right, you got yourself a deal.
Choosing the most boring way possible to swap spit.
Dear Lord, are you suggesting that after everything they went through, they French kiss and bump the movie's rating up higher?
Did you find it?
We got most of it, boss.
Forget the ruby! It's the master cable that I want.
But you didn't fucking tell them that. They had no idea that you wanted the cable back. It's amazing how many villains would have higher success rate if they didn't have an audience to surprise.
Jeremy yells at the screen cliché. Also, someone didn't proofread their scripts, because it should be would have higher success rates or would have a higher success rate.
I was about to praise this newspaper for actually having a non-copy and paste article that actually matches the headline. That is until I realized it's describing the events of Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, which, as previously mentioned, exists as a movie in this universe. Okay, maybe this movie is a dramatization of events that actually happened and were reported in this newspaper, but you and I both know it's actually just another fucking ill-thought-out Easter egg.
Still sending Easter eggs. Dude, every movie is going to have them. The real sin should be that there's nothing referencing Chicken Run, unless there were a few that I missed and need to rewatch later.
Here we have an Australian actor doing an impression of an English rat doing an impression of a Welsh singer, and I just think we'll never be able to appreciate Hugh Jackman enough to offset the shit we put him through.
So instead of removing a sin for the impressive effort, you add one? That makes me not quite so bonza. So mad, in fact, that any reasonable thought for this drongo has been chucked out of the ute. So let's just add the value of a pineapple and move on.
And the lady wears big undies.
Yeah, the movie likes its underwear humor, but just as a matter of record, does this mean Grandma is now Donald ducking it at the dinner table? I'm all for body positivity and personal freedom, but that's just not great dining etiquette.
Body positivity and personal freedom. And yet you made an inappropriate comment about Padme's Tatooine outfit in Attack of the Clones. What a hypocrite.
Well, that's no life, is it?
Fortunately for Roddy, Rita's mom has met someone who mirrors Roddy's experience, and this enables her to share how miserable this person was, and that the true meaning of Christmas is to never be happy with your own company and to make sure you're never alone, whatever the cost. Did I start this sin with fortunately?
So we're sinning characterization now? And yes, you did start with fortunately.
So, I hand Roddy over to the toad and claim the reward, then we're all sitting pretty for the rest of our lives.
Rita doesn't agree with this plan, but is, of course, talking about it in the most incriminating way possible so that an eavesdropping Roddy misunderstands and runs away. Look, I know movies got a conflict, but since they make up in about 5 minutes, what was the fucking point? Why can't we just get along?
Clearly you don't understand that movies have to have conflict, because you just said that this was unnecessary since they make up soon after. Conflict happens for a reason. Without conflict, there'd be no drama. It would just have Roddy washing the dishes like he planned to, and the scene would just be boring as the family has a conversation in the kitchen while the guest does the washing up. Who would want to see that?
We can't play the song that the slugs are singing, and so instead I'll take this opportunity, totally unrelated, of course, to talk about the old-fashioned idea that no dialogue or scene should exist if it isn't furthering the story in some way.
Well, isn't that just hypocritical? You ask for scenes that give you a more padded runtime, even though it's not important to the story being told, and now you're saying comic relief scenes like Scrat's adventures during Ice Age or the slugs singing popular songs shouldn't be in the movie because it pads the runtime. Mate, pick a lane.
I've had a tip-off. They're heading west to Kensington.
And since we never find out where this tip-off came from, I'm forced to diagnose this as an excessive use of plot propellant and recommend a full movie clichectomy.
And now you're back to wanting the runtime to be padded right after saying it's wrong. This tip-off isn't important to the story because the movie doesn't want to add too many unnecessary characters in it and get the movie finished quicker.
How do you think I'd sell you out?
Because you've only just f***ing met, and he literally heard you say you were going to sell him out.
Explaining plot points again, are we?
This is such an overreaction.
Roddy would be a stop-motion version of this film at CinemaSins.
She did this because he walked out on their deal and stole her boat over a misunderstanding. In her eyes, he drew first blood, and this is considered payback. But of course, Roddy was wrong here, so I'd say he fits in at CinemaSins just like a hamster on a wheel.
As Rodent serenades Rita Ora with an apology song for something he doesn't need to apologize for, I have to wonder when he had time to rehearse this with Sluggle Mix here.
First off, to be more accurate to the time frame, it would be Slugs Allowed, not Sluggle Mix. You messed up there, bud. Secondly, he does have to apologise because he stole her boat. Thirdly, he was more preoccupied with tying the boy to the rubber duck so he wouldn't lose Rita's trail and have his hands free singing the song to realise that he had backup sluggers.
Toaster in the water, electricity, it all adds up. Except for that last part about where it's plugged in and why it would float and how the he wrote it here in the first place.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've done it. An actual CinemaSin.
Wait for it, wait for it.
What exactly was she waiting for? I was expecting the sudden acceleration to throw the chasing rats off balance, but since it has no effect on them at all this did was decrease Rita and Roddy's lead and create some artificial tension that I will now apologize for shattering.
You must have missed the part where Thimble-Nosed Ted's hand mixer slowed down before Rita sped off.
Go, go, purple custard!
This custard is neither purple nor is it go-going in a way that instant custard has ever gone.
Says this while showing the mixer getting jammed and icing powder entrapping Fat Barry.
Hang on tight!
Stealing the NOS button from the Fast movies. Actually, stealing anything from the Fast movies.
Jeremy makes a pop culture reference that isn't a sin of the movie cliche.
Oh, please, not the scrapbook again.
Thinking that having a character point out how annoying and forced your expositional backstory is will keep us from sinning how annoying and forced your expositional backstory is.
Except LeFrog has heard this all before, and we haven't. Meanwhile, this is useful information as to why the Toad is the way he is. His royal upbringing, his hatred for rats, his want to replace the rats in sewer with his tadpoles.
We would frolic day after sunny day in royal abandon.
The Crown has not done a season on this important royal storyline.
Maybe because it was made up for this movie. I don't know, I just can't find any reference to it anywhere.
You know everything about me, warts and all.
Sharing your social hygiene situation this quickly.
Just like your misunderstanding of the phrase blowing raspberries, I have difficulty believing that you are 45 and don't understand that warts and all means the features or qualities of a person that you may not find appealing. It has nothing to do with the actual skin condition.
What are these frogs at the top of the screen even attached to? The ceiling is way up here. Are their delicious legs 15 feet long?
Ah, mon dieu.
Well done, Le Frog.
Think back to 2006 and ask yourself how many cell phone video calls you saw happening. Very fucking few is the answer, because they were ridiculously expensive. Most phones couldn't do it, and the ones that could were nowhere near the quality we're seeing here. It is some bullshit that Frognito over here lucked into two of the things being discarded into his domain.
Who cares if it's unrealistic? It's a cartoon, just go with it, dude.
What do you want it for, anyway?
Oh, you'll see. Come the World Cup final this afternoon.
Why doesn't he just say it powers his microwave, wine cooler, or the life support system of his sick old grandmother? There's no reason for him to give a hint about his evil plan that will later allow Roddy to foil the whole damn thing.
They already know that he has an evil plot on the way, and they weren't going to buy any of those excuses. Not to mention, he's made no mention of a family member on life support, as the only ones we've seen are his cousin or his tadpoles.
Giving someone a tongue lashing, despite them clearly indicating to hold your tongue.
Gross.
These slugs clearly took classes at imitating Michael Winslow making sound effects in the movie Police Academy. Academy.
I suppose this is better than the Prometheus school of running away from things, but it's still not funny.
I know we've covered this, but it really is wild that this lever acts as some kind of psychic link that allows the MacGyver hand to do whatever the operator needs it to.
Double dipping.
Goodbye, Jammy, me old mate.
We would have sinned it, but it's still a crime that they missed the opportunity to do a Terminator gives the thumbs up while sinking in lava here.
Wow, there's really no way for the movie to win here, is there? You would have sinned it for making a pop culture reference while making the same one yourself.
Inverness Gardens, Vicarage Gate, Kensington High Street.
For a rat who lives in a cage, Roddy has an incredible working knowledge of London from above.
So you must have forgotten when Roddy fell from the sewer grate onto the London from above mural.
Triangle left!
If you try hard enough, the wind will obey your every whim.
Wrong. They were actually pushing their weight to each side to make it go down, hence why it darts to the side when they kick themselves in the directions called out by Roddy.
As promised, the Kensington Jewels.
Remember that part where it was hilarious because people mistook you for a notorious jewel thief? Yeah? Well, congratulations, you actually are one now, you thieving rat bastard!
He promised Rita a jewel-based payment as return for bringing him home, and as an apology for breaking her original ruby.
And maybe this could be the Jammy Dodger Mark II.
I mean, that's very generous, but there's not a lot of room on that thing. And do emeralds even float?
He means she could sell it to pay for a brand new boat. And no, emeralds don't float in water unless they're fakes.
How is this remote control car drivable like an actual vehicle? And why? And how? And why?
This how's on for why too much time.
It's a palace. I can do whatever I want, whenever I want to.
Whoa, settle down there, Roddy. I know you're feeling upset about Rita calling you out on your loneliness, but despite all your rage, you're still just a rat in a cage.
At least he didn't sing it. But Sid was the one that embarrassed him about it, not Rita. Sure, she did point out the cage in Tabitha's room and questioned if he was all alone, but Sid was the one that actually made him feel worse about it, and Rita was actually trying to comfort him before Roddy started talking about how free he felt there.
I'm choosing to believe that this book is a copy of Cracking Animation, which is a stop-motion holy text, and that at least someone behind the scenes slipped it in as a fuck you to this movie being CGI. It wouldn't have taken a genius to realize this movie would be 1,000 times more endearing if it was stop-motion. Come on, it's not odd, man.
Whatever, funny joke. The point is, like I said earlier, the CG water scenes would have been incredibly difficult to superimpose onto the claymation stills, despite Aardman eventually mastering it in the film Pirates in an Adventure with Scientists, released back in 2012. And again, if they were to stick with stop motion, Jeffrey Katzenberg would have been tapping his foot, waiting another 5 years for Aardman to put out another movie. I agree that the fully CG scenes did make the film suffer a bit, but at least they tried to recreate the Aardman signature touch with the imperfections in the characters' designs.
Instead of worrying about how the they're going to get home, the three slugs airdrop themselves in to pile on about how miserable Roddy is through the medium of ripping off a song about soldiers in Vietnam.
Nothing to see here, folks, just Jeremy singing comic relief again. But I will mention DreamWorks and/or Aardman would have had to pay royalties to use the songs used in the film.
What the hell are these four defenders doing? I know nothing about foots or balls, but I know that the prancing quartet defense is not a real thing.
Clearly you've never been to a soccer football match before, Jeremy. The German players are taunting the English player. This act is usually performed by the fans by way of singing derogatory songs about the opposing team. But you get the picture, hopefully.
What did you say?
Oh, the bathroom. I'm waiting. Well, till half-time.
Half-time? He's waiting till half-time.
Oh, poppycock and horseradish. Was that enough to trigger Roddy's memory? The movie didn't give us a single inkling that Roddy or Rita even gave a shit about what Gus the theater frog was up to until Roddy spontaneously beautiful minds his way to an epiphany here. This is so convenient I wouldn't be surprised if Roddy went on to be that f***ing rat in Endgame.
Those seeds were likely being planted for us, between the rat billboard, the master cable removal, and the plans to coincide with the football match. Sid saying he was waiting for half-time was the cherry on top that allowed Roddy to connect the dots about the Toad's plan.
I've got Rita, boss! I've got Rita!
But how, I say? How? How did they know where the hell she was, or when she was getting back to the sewers? Why build up Rita only to make her the damsel in distress in the finale? And how? And why?
Just stop. It wasn't funny the first time.
These two characters aren't voiced by Simon Pegg and Nick Frost.
Jeremy makes a Pegg and Frost comparison that isn't a sin of the movie cliche. Okay, it isn't a cliche, I just wanted to change it up.
Rita! If one balloon was enough to carry Roddy up here, then why aren't three of them carrying this guy away too? In fact, if they're that strong, who the f*** is buying them? Airlines?
Maybe because Roddy is thinner than the balloon vendor? It could also have something to do with the fan he's using.
Semi-automatic staplers.
You mean pneumatic staplers, mate. Or possibly Tommy staplers, since that's what they might be trying to emulate here.
Well, that was convenient.
And explained.
Oh, Whitey! I saw an opportunity and I seized it.
I'll be the one laughing when every last revolting rat is flushed away.
Moral ribbits.
You missed your opportunity to say that 2 separate lines ago.
I know. You were flushed away down the loo, right?
When everyone goes to the toilet, the whole city will be flushed away.
Haha, we've got frogs literally leapfrogging. But this has got to be one of the dumbest ways that they could have chosen to attack Rita and Roddy. They're supposed to want to win, right?
And doesn't that remind me of a certain someone who comes up with the dumbest reasons to sin movies?
Come and get me, you big slimy airbag!
Roddy, look out!
I'm sorry, movie, but you can't have it both ways. Roddy can either be the clumsy rat bastard that leaned on this horn and was thrown overboard by a bucket, or he's the rat-acrobatic genius that figures out how to save the day and pulls off this trick. You can't be both Pinky and the Brain.
Sinning characterization again? Roddy didn't have a lot of street smarts or spatial awareness at the beginning of the movie, as his only friends have been dolls and action figures. And he was home alone after the family left on a holiday. He'd never even left the house because he didn't want to, nor did he feel the need to. Then he got flushed down the loo because someone else took over his property, had to see how the other half lives, learned to accept other people in his life, and eventually realised that he found his true happiness in the sewer, despite being caught in the middle of a maniacally genocidal amphibian's grudge against the rodents, eventually deciding to rescue the underground city and remain there for the rest of his life. As for the acrobatics thing, it was most likely just hidden.
Goodbye, rat!
Why is this supposed to worry me when I've already seen characters fall from far greater heights onto far less fluid surfaces?
Because now there's a massive tidal wave coming, which was intended to drown all the rats. If Roddy didn't rescue Rita from the oncoming flood, she would have drowned.
Please work, please work, please work!
This does indeed work.
And you're assuming it wouldn't?
So this asshole right here spotted the wave before anyone else had time to go home, get changed, and come back with his surfboard? I mean, yeah, screw warning your friends and family, because surf's up, dude!
Must be a tourist from California or Queensland. You know how much they love their surf.
I'd usually spend my time pointing things out on this newspaper, like that several of these articles come from Toronto for some reason, but I'm too distracted by the fucking slugs playing soccer and the newspaper's photo. What in the name of my Harry Potter is going on here? And why? And how?
Jeremy makes a pop culture reference that isn't a sin of the movie cliche. But thank God that's the last time I have to listen to the how and why diatribe.
Just had to squeeze one last stereotype in there, didn't we? Couldn't have the Irish feeling left out, now could we?
Not if they don't want to be cursed by an angry leprechaun with a pint of Guinness. And with that, court is adjourned. Leave any more suggestions for CinemaSins sins down below.